The reason the West haven't been accumulating gold is because gold is the antithesis of the system. And it shows the inherent weakness and fragility of the Western system. And that's why they've suppressed it forever. And it wasn't just gold and silver, to me, are things that they just never have wanted to let go, because it really signals that the make-believe fiat system is breaking now, so more than ever. But in terms of technical, look, $2,000 appears to be the new support for gold. Used to be the high. It held up very well in the face of rising interest rates. Everyone thought it would be horrible for it. It should be higher. I think it ultimately will be higher.
President and owner of Miles Franklin, AndySchectman, implies that the Western nations refrain from amassing gold due to its revelation of their financial system's vulnerabilities. He sees gold and silver as a sign of a weakening fiat system, predicting a rise beyond $2,000. Gold prices surged 13% in 2023, in their first annual rise since 2020, and are forecast to reach record highs in 2024, as lower interest rates reduce the opportunity cost of holding non-yielding bullion. Schectman agrees with Rickards on anticipating a gold-backed currency, citing central banks' record-breaking accumulation of gold and silver in the past 2 years. By the end of the third quarter of 2023, the total purchases amounted to 800 metric tons. This volume surpasses the already significant acquisitions of 2022 and sets a new precedent in the global gold market. The implications of de-dollarization and diversification, increasingly boosting demand for silver as they have for gold over the last 2 years, are also profound. However, Andy stresses the BIS's gold reclassification as vital for legitimizing a new currency system. Referencing the Johannesburg meeting and the trend of local currency trades, he underscores a gradual shift away from reliance on the US dollar. A new BRICS currency could uncertainly challenge the US dollar's dominance. If it stabilizes against the dollar, it might weaken the impact of US sanctions, contributing to a potential decline in the dollar's value. Nations worldwide are seeking alternatives to the US dollar, with examples being China and Russia trading in their own currencies, and countries like India, Kenya, and Malaysia advocating for de-dollarization or signing agreements with other nations to trade in local currencies or alternative benchmarks. Citing statements from IMF's Kristalina Georgieva, Andy underscores the importance of pegging any CBDC to a tangible asset for credibility. Now, we present the clips of AndySchectman's insights from his recent interview with SOAR Financially. Before we continue to delve into this discussion, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
It's ultimately 100% going to happen. I mean, look, there's no reason for the BIS to reclassify gold, the only other tier 1 reserve asset in the world. And when you look at the amount of gold that's been accumulated, and silver, by the central banks, you're talking over the last 2 years, more gold accumulated by the central banks, and mostly those central banks, than at any time ever in central banking history. I just think that in order to issue a currency that has legitimacy, you have to, like in crypto speak, you have to have mass adoption. They weren't ready to do it. And Jim Rickards is a very smart man, and he's more tied in than I'll ever be. He said 2 things that made a lot of sense to me. One, they'll issue a gold-backed currency. I couldn't agree more. I think there will be a marriage of gold and blockchain technology, where you will have a blockchain that shows what every country has pledged to the new system. It'll be it won't be a reserve currency at first, maybe, but it will be a settlement currency, and it will be pegged to commodities. We've been told that by the Russian finance minister for years. I believe it to be true. The BIS reclassified gold. All the banks are repatriating their gold and massively accumulating it. And you look at the amount of gold that China and Russia and India and Saudi Arabia, all of these countries have been accumulating. It's off the charts. And they're not even telling us how much they're really accumulating. But you have to do it in a manner that has mass adoption. You can't do something like this unless all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. If you look at what happened at the end of the meeting, Kai, they said, the meeting in Johannesburg, let's all go back to the drawing board, come back and present your findings next year on a common settlement currency. In the meantime, let's all trade in local currencies. And that's exactly what you see happening. The deals are being struck in, China has some 30 currency swaps with other countries, 30 countries worth of currency swaps, where They agree to use each other's currencies in lieu of the US dollar for settlement. And each one of these currency swaps or all of these settlements that are being done outside the dollar is another swing at the tree. Chop, 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 or little by little by little by little. And ultimately, it will affect the reserve status of the US dollar. And that's really the issue here is that, yes, all of the dollar bulls are correct. It still is the most liquid market on the planet, and it still is the world reserve currency. But you can see that little by little changes are being made. Now, yes, if they were to issue a gold-backed currency, which I believe ultimately they will, and tie it to cryptocurrency, to a blockchain, which I believe ultimately they will. And the reason they'll do that is because President de Gaulle from France proved that convertible currencies convert. He started draining all the gold held at the Treasury, and that's why Nixon closed the gold window. So if you make a currency, Gresham's law, where good money chases out bad, you're going to have a deal where people will convert. But if you instead don't allow the conversion, but have immutability and veracity and transparency, you have the gold or whatever commodity is pegged to the system on the ledger and have it audited and be completely transparent about it, you have legitimacy immediately. And I think that's ultimately where we are going. Even Kristalina Georgieva, the head of the IMF, said any central bank digital currency that is not pegged to something is just another fiat currency. I think they know they have to tie it to something. And what better to do than the only other tier one reserve asset? And do you think there's any coincidence that the central bankers of the world have bought more than at any time in history? Of course not. But they're doing it the right way. Now, my only question is, does the West beat them to it? Because I think the West realizes this has to happen too.
AndySchectman firmly believes Western banks deliberately suppress gold and silver prices to hide the fiat system's frailty. He predicts the illusion of dollar supremacy will persist until the Western system becomes obsolete due to low interest rates and controlled precious metal prices. Historically, the United States has relied on the dollar's reserve currency status to finance significant deficits in domestic and foreign trade. The U.S. could relinquish this financial flexibility if central banks worldwide opt to curtail their accumulation of substantial dollar reserves. He anticipates a breaking point for the fiat system, emphasizing the continuous accumulation of gold and silver. Let's get back to the interview.
When you look at the way the market moves, when you look at the way that it gets clubbed at the AM fix and the PM fix, when you look at the way that it gets clubbed heading into New York, markets don't behave that way. There is a very strong vested interest by the West and the Western banks to suppress the price of gold and silver. Look, I mean, just on a very basic level, gold and silver signal frailty of the system. So all of the assets or investments that a lot of these commercial banks have, they don't want to see gold and silver take off because it signals that, hey, maybe there's a problem in the equity markets or in the markets that they're heavily involved in. And I think more than anything, the illusion of dollar supremacy is one that has been maintained by low interest rates and a low gold and silver price. They're not commodities. They are a barometer of the health of the system. So as much as I want to believe that there are market dynamics like people just trying to finally get out after being underwater for so long, sure, that's a part of it. But not in a world where the commercial banks and the leverage that they have on behalf of other players, maybe the central banks in the futures exchanges, can really control the perception of reality through, levered futures contracts where massive short positions like in silver. Why is it that 4 or 5 commercial banks hold the largest concentrated short position of any commodity traded on silver? Why? Why would they do that? And the same thing is true of gold. Why do the commercial banks continually short the price of gold? Sure, there's some legitimacy in what they do, but not to that degree. And so, yeah, I think there is a headwind that the West has put into the price of gold for a very long time, but that plays right into the hands of those trying to accumulate it. And I think there will come a point where the Western system is just rendered obsolete. But not until we reach the point where there's just no gold and silver left to be delivered at those prices. So look, yes, there's a very small portion of it that's legitimate market functioning. People selling because they've been underwater for a long time or whatever it might be or used to be in terms of thinking of normal market dynamics. But I think it's a lot deeper than that. And I think gold and silver to me are things that they just never have wanted to let go, because it really signals that the make-believe fiat system is breaking now, so more than ever. But in terms of technical, look, $2,000 appears to be the new support for gold. Used to be the high. It held up very well in the face of rising interest rates. Everyone thought it would be horrible for it. It should be higher. I think it ultimately will be higher. You'll wake up on a Monday morning and it will be way higher, because they've just given up trying to hold it down. The whole MO of the commercial banks is to short a rising market. Now, who the hell does that? Who shorts a price that's being gobbled up and on so many fundamental reasons why it should be going higher, and the world is accumulating it? You got a handful of commercial banks beat the crap out of it. Why? And who would do that? Normally, you short a falling market. But if you have unlimited funds and the backing of the West, the powers that be, yeah, you can just keep throwing money at levered futures contracts and just overwhelm the move upward. And that's what they do. And who shorts a rising market? That's what the commercial banks always do, and put a cap on it. Those days will come to an end, because ultimately supply and demand will overwhelm even the ability of these players to hold down the paper price. And anyone who denies that gold and silver are manipulated, I think they're missing the point.
While the most notable increase was to gold price estimates, which were boosted between 12% and 17% over the coming years, and which should help pull up silver prices, silver's own fundamentals and market dynamics have earned the gray metal a 5% increase in BMO's price projections for 2024. What role do you see for gold and silver in shaping global currencies? And how might these changes impact the broader economy? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the next video.